Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today I will be talking about a problem which I believe has permeated our society at every level, even amongst the youth. Or rather, good afternoon. I'm Carlos, and I want to talk about a problem I've seen really everywhere, but especially among high schoolers. And that's that we take things too seriously for our age. Sure, hopefully we're a bit more mature and we should be more responsible, but we also need to remember that we're kids at the end of the day, and that things are not the end of the world. Thing number one that is not the end of the world, that number you got on that test. A number on a piece of paper is not going to determine your life. Another problem when we take things too seriously, that group member that's shouting at the other group member because they made a mistake. Or the hated, pompous professor who cannot believe that they're wrong and ignores a question because they take themselves way too seriously. But you might say, seriousness is a good thing because it makes sure that you work hard and that you're motivated because you take your things seriously and you value your ideas and you bring them to the table. I would argue that's not seriousness. That's confidence. Why? Because you can be perfectly confident in your ideas and yourself in order to speak up without placing too much worth and value on them and saying that if they are not implemented, it's the end of the world. You can accept the fact that your ideas are not the best. And why do I say this? Because I think there's an overabundance of seriousness in our society. There's an emphasis on things that are not serious, that we treat them as such. What's serious? The Russian-Ukraine conflict. Those diplomats need to know what they are doing because lives hang in the balance every day. That kind of puts your grades on Power School in perspective because that math major you're doing next week really doesn't matter that much. And dare I say that we take universities too seriously. So, last 2 years of high school, they feel like they revolve around the university application process. You have all those kids who are, frankly, putting a slightly idealized version of themselves on their college applications, and they lose sleep waiting for their replies. I had a friend who applied to Oxford, arguably one of the best schools in the world, if not the best university in the world. And he used to say, Oxford or bust, right? At first, he was all confident. And then he made it past the first round. Then he made it past the interview round. And then he was a wreck. The 2 weeks leading up to the final decision, he was refreshing his email. Every notification he was waiting for, seeing if he finally got in or not. And then he did it. He got into Oxford. And all of his exuberance fizzled out to an empty feeling. Now, the emptiness after placing too much value on something might be an isolated experience, but the anxiety and the stress is not. The amount of kids that place their worth over getting into their dream school, the amount of kids that think, if I don't get into this school that I really want to get to, it's all over. Now, universities don't really know you. What do they have? A couple numbers signaling your grades and maybe 1 or 2 personal essays. That's not enough to know you as a person. So I don't think you should take their opinion you shouldn't take their opinion to heart. After all, would you take a stranger's opinion to heart on whether you're worth anything as a person? I wouldn't. And second of all, I think that senior year should be more focused on spending time with those that we might never see again in our lives. It's the last year of high school. We should enjoy it. But don't take it from me. Take it from over 99,000 high school graduates in the US, 70% of which said that they were very stressed about the university application process. And what do you know? 68% of those said they wished they had stressed less. Here's a handy-dandy little flowchart to help you see why. You apply to a university. Now, what are the options? You get in, or you don't get in. If you get in, perfect, amazing. That means you had absolutely nothing to worry about, and those sleepless nights were useless. Option 2, you don't get in. Now you face a choice. You either work your butt off to try to get into that university, you pester them with emails, you ask them to reconsider, you see if you can do any courses, you might take a gap year and fill out your CV and your application with extra courses, with internships, in order to show that university you care and you want to get in there. In that case, you've got to work. There's no time to stress, there's no time to worry, and it's pointless anyway. The other option is, okay, maybe you don't want that university, you've got other applications. You shouldn't have worried anyway. If anything, you've got to work on making sure those other applications are better. And I'm not saying don't take your application seriously. Yes, take your application seriously. You should be able to submit a well-rounded, good application. But don't take the result of that application seriously. Because if you do, you know what that leads to? That just leads to you losing your self-worth, losing your self-confidence, losing your ambition. Because you say, man, I didn't get in. Man, how could I have not gotten in? Man, I'm worthless. I can't do it. And another thing, universities aren't even necessary to succeed. We place so much value on them, but at the end of the day, they're not for everyone, right? My cousin went to community college for 2 years, and then he went to a relatively unknown university in California called St. Thomas Aquinas, and now he's working at a job and he's 24 and he's doing fine. There's no big famous university there. My brother went to Trinity College Dublin for 1 semester. Then he dropped out because he did not like the course. He felt bored. It was during COVID. He was lonely. He went to Spain to work for a year at a grocery store, and now he's in Germany learning German in order to do an apprenticeship there. Why am I telling you this? Because there are options. Don't take universities too seriously. Don't take their applications too seriously, because there are other ways to succeed in life. But you might say, okay, now I've graduated. Now I'm in a job. I should be professional. I need to take things seriously. Once again, not too much. And once again, you might be asking, why? If you're too serious, you're probably not having fun. And why should you have fun? Well, if you have fun, you're happy. And happy workers work better. That should not come as a big surprise to you, but there was a study that confirmed this, University of Warwick. So they had 2 volunteer groups. One of them, they showed a video that was supposed to make them happier. They exposed them to clips such as Rocky when he's training with that music in the background to pump you up. And they self-reported to be happier than the group of people that did not watch that video. Then they were given work to do. In this case, it was math problems. And the people that self-reported themselves to be happier attempted more problems. Now, they were not better at the math, but they tried harder. There was more effort put into their work. Fun is not a business priority, which is true. But productivity is. And what this study shows is that fun leads to productivity. And if you're taking your job too seriously, you're not having fun. Maybe this gives some credence to the fact that Google has a bunch of slides in all of their HQs. And this isn't a Google-only thing. Before we had this very boring, hierarchical system in which you had cubicles treating people more like machines than humans. And we're seeing a shift in the workplace, in people's thinking, in which people are trying to make something called corporate culture, which is supposed to keep everyone, all the employees, more motivated and happier and more willing to work, because they'll be more efficient, they'll work better, they'll actually want to come to work. But that's not the only benefit of having fun at work, of not taking it too seriously. If you're having fun, you're happier, you've got better mental health. And there are a plethora of studies linking mental well-being to physical health. You can look at any of these and how if you're stressed, you're more likely to develop, some types of cancer, and all that's good stuff, not good stuff. This is good for the employer and for the employee if you don't take things too seriously, because then you'll be having fun and you'll be happier. The employer will have less sick days from their workers, and they'll have less absenteeism because people will be more motivated to work. They'll want to work. And then you yourself, you'll have better health, and you'll live longer, and you'll live happier. So don't take your job too seriously. Of course work, of course be professional, but don't place so much value on it because it's not the end of the world. And the final thing I'm going to talk about, in which we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously, is something that's relevant for jobs, sure, but really any social interaction you have with anyone. And these are inevitable because humans are social creatures. And that is that if you take yourself too seriously, you are vain and you are arrogant. Except for all the Tom Hiddleston stans out there, no one really likes Loki because he's selfish and he's arrogant and he cannot take criticism. And no one likes someone who cannot take criticism. They either take the criticism too seriously or themselves too seriously because they think that they are too good. They take themselves so seriously that they cannot see how to improve. And these people are never going to make it very far in life because they do not change, they do not grow. I would say that the Model United Nation Clubs here at school is a case study in how you should not take things too seriously in this regards. When I was in ninth grade, I was a freshman, I was new to MUN, I'd done it for 1 year. I joined it in order to have fun, in order to work on some skills, and of course, get the necessary hours, creativity hours, CAS hours, to graduate. And what did they have us do? They had us look at the Brexit agreement that was being actively debated in the European and British parliaments. That's a bit of a tall order for a bunch of freshmen that are just looking for a little bit of fun to do after school. I don't think it's very surprising then that by the end of the school year, the club had 3 members left at one point. I was one of them. I did not want to do MUN again next year, but then they reached out to me and they said, hey, you're doing MUN. Would you like to be part of the leadership team? And I said, sure. And my whole mission was to rebrand MUN and make it fun, because right now it was boring. They expected way too much of us. They took themselves way too seriously because they are just a club. Sure, they are a professional club, and I'm the co-leader of MUN. I think it's important, but I don't take it so seriously as they did back then. How do I not take it seriously? The first day of MUN this year, what I did is that I asked people who their favorite dictator was. That's not exactly professional, that's not exactly serious, but it showed everyone that I was not boring, that MUN is not just some club for haughty, pompous political animals talking about obscure conflicts in who knows where. It's something that people do to know about what's going on in the world today and to debate these things. I also had them, for example, debate pineapple on pizza and whether that should be a thing using MUN procedure. So I would mix some professional things with a very unserious topic so that people could have fun and be lighthearted and keep coming to MUN. And that's what happened. This year we have around 18 to 19 members that are still coming every single week, which is a far cry from the 3 that were there in ninth grade. I would call that a large success. One more MUN story. Now, I've been doing MUN for 5 or 6 years now, and so I'm the co-leader of MUN and I'm teaching. I'm in an MUN meeting. We're talking about climate change. And this beginner delegate raises her hand and she asks, can I disagree with you? Of course she can, I tell her. I was actually encouraged her to disagree with me because that's the nature of debate. She proceeds to fact check me, and it turns out that I was wrong on my stats and my figures. And this is one of those moments when you have to pause and you have to think, how do I react to being wrong? If I took myself too seriously as the co-leader of MUN, as a senior, as the teacher of this club, and as someone who had been doing MUN for 6 years, I might not have reacted very favorably to being wrong. I might have ignored or sidelined her very, very true critique of my stats and my figures. But no, I assented and I said, yeah, you're right. And the smile on her face when she saw that a beginner could fact check and correct a longtime member of MUN, the leader of MUN, was great. And everyone else in that room also saw how you don't need to be experienced in order to do well. And after all, who likes someone who can't accept that they're wrong? That takes themselves so seriously that they say, I am the leader, how can you correct me? No one does. I'm not infallible, and neither are you. I realized how small I was that day, which is a good thing. Still, you might say, but we need to take things seriously because we work to live, so we need to take our work seriously. And I say we put way too much stress on the first half of that sentence and not the second half. We work to live. We don't live to work. Things do matter. We should take things seriously, but not the ones that we're taking seriously today. A warm meal, stupid jokes, smiles, spending time with loved ones. Those are the things that we need to take more seriously today. When was the last time you looked at the sky or the clouds? Therefore, I'm here to tell you that these are the things we need to take more seriously. Thank you.